Hello and welcome to Into the Woods with Holly Wharton. This podcast is all about our journey into the woods of ourselves, getting to know who we are, and where we're going in life so that we can create the life that we want to live. It's about deepening your connection with yourself, taking inspired action, and really trusting yourself and your intuition. It's also about mindset. Our beliefs are such an important part of this journey. And there are so many ways for us to change our mindset so that we can more easily live a life of expansive joy. This podcast is also about going literally into the woods and spending time in nature, and how that can help us on our own personal journey of self-knowledge. Thank you so much for joining us today. Now let's get into this week's episode. Hello, adventurers, and welcome to the Into the Woods podcast, episode 451. This is your host, Holly Wharton, and I'm back with another exciting guest. Today, I'm talking with Dr. Andrea Perez about rest and recovery and how to balance that with adventure. So I'm super excited to introduce this week's guest, Dr. Andrea Perez. She's a family physician with a holistic approach, and we had a fantastic chat about rest and sleep and recovery. Dr. Andrea has some super practical tips on how to incorporate stillness and mindfulness into a busy life. Now, I know that I tend to focus a lot more on being active and moving my body and not so much on rest and recovery, but that's not sustainable. So that's why I love Dr. Andrea's advice on how to let your next goals come from your body, not your head. So, who is Dr. Andrea? She's a board-certified family physician with 20 years of experience. Her desire to serve diverse families with equitable and high-quality healthcare led her to open Health Development and Restorative Medicine, PC, in the Bronx, New York, where she and her staff passionately attend to the community's physical, emotional, and mental health needs. In response to a calling, Dr. Andrea also serves her clients across the country on her virtual online platform, The Spiritual Physician. The Spiritual Physician platform provides a space where clients can truly deep dive into their health and bring to light the origins of their dis-ease. Dr. Andrea is a sought-after bilingual speaker and influencer where she discusses her views on medicine, health, and the interconnectedness of spirituality and healing. She's an athlete, a salsera, and a lover of truth and knowledge. She resides in New York City with her family and doggy. So what are you going to learn in this week's episode? We talk about how to tell if you need more rest and sleep. We discuss sleep quantity versus sleep quality, how you can get better sleep, better quality sleep. We talk about the different ways we can recover from our adventures, how to find a balance between being active and recovering from our adventures, why hearing, listening, and trusting your inner knowingness is the key to transformational health, and how to get in touch with your inner knowingness. So I hope you find this episode interesting and useful. There's some super practical advice in here that I think you will love. So here's the episode. Hello, how are you doing today?
Good morning. I am doing fabulous. So happy to be here.
I'm excited to talk to you. So can you start out by telling us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Sure. Well, that's always such an interesting question to me, but I'll...
You can go anywhere with that.
I know, right? Yeah. Well, my name is Dr. Andrea Perez, and I am a family medicine physician who works with, patients from ages 5, and my oldest patient is 8 at this point. And I really just try to create this idea of health and healing, this reality, right, of health and healing for my patients throughout their lifespan. And one of the things that I have come to understand is that spirituality and energy really have a big impact on our health. And I say come to understand because I think I've always known that and have always tried to put myself in a silo. Like, it's either medicine or it's spirituality, it's energy. I don't want to be seen as one or the other, right? And the merging of those two are so important and so necessary to healing that I've created this platform, The Spiritual Physician, where I am really looking to integrate spirituality into the exam room, embolden physicians to bring spirituality into the exam room, and at the same time, encouraging and empowering patients to hear, listen, and trust their own inner knowingness, right? So that they can really, and I say they because we're all patients at one point in time, can really bring true health and healing to
Mm.
our lives, right? That's what we're meant to have.
Yeah. I really like that holistic approach. And I think that's something that I personally haven't seen a lot in English speaking countries. I
Yeah.
lived in Latin America for about a third of my life in various countries. And I
Mm.
found that the medical doctors there were so much more open to alternative therapies and would combine them in their practice, which is something I haven't seen in other parts of the world.
Yeah, unfortunately, agree with you because I think, here, especially in the States, there was a time, and it wasn't really that long ago, we're talking about 100 years ago, which in the
Mhm.
scheme of life is really not an eternity, where healers were physicians, physicians were healers.
Yeah.
There was this intertwining. Alternative medicine, spirituality, energy medicine, herbal medicine, all within the science of medicine. And it's really only been recently in modern times that there's been this dichotomy, this clear split. And I think physicians are afraid, especially here in the States, to practice in a more holistic manner.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree. So, on this show, we talk a lot about outdoor adventures and
Mm.
different ways to move our bodies. So, what are your favorite adventures? I know you've done a marathon and a triathlon. How do you like to move?
Oh, wow. We were talking a little bit before, and I have come to the understanding that my body gets to move in different ways, right?
Mhm.
There's times when you mentioned I've done the marathon, I do a lot of running. And sometimes I really need that more aerobic, pounding,
Mm.
get aggressive type of exercise. And oftentimes I also get to just walk, which is one of the best exercises that we can do. And yoga. I
Yeah.
love yoga because yoga is, I think, athletes, right? And we're all athletes, right?
Yeah.
As long as you can move, you're an athlete, right? I think athletes tend to feel that if your heart rate is not at 150 and over, that you're not exercising, right? Like you're not getting the burn. And
Yeah.
it's like, no, there's so many ways that we can attain a different form of exercise. So yoga is actually one of my favorite exercises also because it really works not just the muscles, but the tendons and ligaments and the flexibility that we really need as we move through life, right? Like that functional type
Mhm.
of movement, like you're in the airplane, you're lifting up your suitcase, you're bringing in your groceries. Those are the type of movements that we do in our everyday life. And weightlifting alone does
Mm.
not really work those type of very small muscles, ligaments, and tendons. So I tend to also enjoy yoga and
Mm.
stretching. And well, I don't really do too much Pilates, but yeah.
Yeah. We all have our favorite activities.
Yes, yes.
So, one thing that I don't talk about as much as I would like to is rest and sleep and recovery. So,
Mm.
can you talk to us about the importance of rest and sleep on our recovery and health in general?
Yeah, I mean, there just from a research standpoint, there have been many articles that have been done on professional athletes, on NCAA athletes, as far as how when we are able to rest and recover, how our ability to output more energy is accomplished, right? Our muscles, our bodies will grow at rest, right? It's not the actual movement that
Mm.
creates the growth, it's the actual pause, right? Or the rest in between that creates our biggest momentum for our bodies, for the rest, for the, I guess, the growth of our
Mhm.
bodies. So, rest and relaxation and sleep is really the cornerstone of fitness.
Mhm.
And I think that sometimes we forget about that. We feel like, hey, I got to get that run in. I got to get
Yeah.
that hike in, right? I
Yeah.
got to do that. And not realizing that when we take a moment to really tune into our bodies and give our bodies what it needs, right? Which I find most of the time is rest or
Mhm.
stillness or a gentler form of movement, then that next run just becomes so much tougher, or that next hike becomes so
Yep.
much tougher because we have not really tuned in to hear what it is that our body needs and honored that.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember once really struggling with my energy levels a few years ago and asking my kickboxing trainer, like, how can I recover better? Like, what do I need to do? And he said, the cheapest form of recovery is sleep. And And I was like, oh, well, that's easy. So,
And sometimes not so easy.
yeah, exactly. So how can we tell if we need more rest and sleep? Like, what are the
Yeah,
signs?
right. Well, the first sign is one of the things you mentioned, the fact that you feel like you're not improving,
Mm-hmm.
right? You're feeling exhausted
Yeah.
all the time. You're feeling that you woke up and half an hour later, you could easily really go back to bed.
Hmm.
That is a great sign that you're doing too much. And I know, especially in our world, what do you mean doing too much? I need
Yeah.
to do more, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so so I really encourage my patients. And when I say patients, I also mean myself, right?
Yeah.
Because as I speak to you, I'm speaking to myself. Encourage myself to really sit in stillness, right?
Yeah.
And take the time to allow the answer to arise, right? So many times we say, well, I think I should be doing this. I think
Mm.
you should be doing that. And we're not really sitting with what is the emotion that is arising in our bodies, right?
Mm.
And the only way that you could really hear that language, hear that signal, is to sit still.
Mm-hmm.
So I really encourage everyone, if you feel that you can only take 2 minutes, then take 2 minutes, right?
Mm-hmm.
But every day incorporate some type of stillness practice where you can really hear the language of your body. And then
Mm.
you get a chance to incorporate that.
And so what time of the day is best to incorporate the stillness?
Well, I would say most experts would say at any time that you're able to do it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I can tell you what I do,
Yep.
right? I love to do that in the mornings,
Yeah.
right? I like to get up in the morning and, spend, sometimes it's 2 minutes, sometimes it's half an hour, sometimes it's 30 seconds
Mm.
in that stillness to really sit with my body. I've noticed that as time is going on, I feel a little creak here, feel a little creak there. And it's like, well, I thought I would go for a run today. It's like, well, maybe I need to do more stretching, or I thought I felt like I needed to stretch more. I would do a yoga class. I'm thinking I'm doing a yoga class. And then it's like, no, I feel really like I need to pound the pavement, go out there and really exert a little bit, a different type of energy. So I do in the mornings. And I've also found that it's extremely important to tap in throughout the day. Because if you're like me, you may do this movement in the morning, this exercise in the morning of stillness, of meditation, of mindfulness, or maybe you do it at night. And by the time noon comes, by the time you're in your car driving to work, it's all gone to hell, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So a real tangible thing that I do that I think has been extremely helpful is to put reminders in my phone to say, hey, have you tapped in? What's going on? So throughout the day, I have alarms on my phone that remind me to come back in.
And how often are those alarms?
For me, I do it, let's see, I'm up around 5:30, 5 o'clock. So I do 9, 1, 5, and 9 p.m. is my last one.
Nice.
Yeah. No, actually 5, 7, and 9. Because 5 is when I'm trying to get out of work, and usually I'm not. So it's real right? So
Exactly.
yeah. So the alarm piece has been really helpful because just like anything else, right? It's a practice.
Yeah.
And we get to practice staying in our bodies versus staying in our minds, right? Many times we think, oh, okay, hey, I want to do a marathon, right? And it's like, well, is it time to do a marathon? I don't know. It may not really be the best time for you, or it may be the best time for you, but we're making the decisions from our mind, our monkey mind, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like, I got to do it. And so what I encourage clients and patients to do is, as we're able to sit still and we're able to let that thing arise of what your next adventure is going to be, is to let it arise from your body. Yeah. Because that's really the divinity. That's really the compass that gets to guide us, right? It's not our mind. Yeah. Our mind, what it does is the sacred masculine, right? It gives us the structure. It's like, okay, now that divine feminine energy has allowed this, has come to the surface and it has said, okay, I'm going to do a marathon. We'll give that instance. I've really felt into it. I'm ready for it. Okay, great. Now, it's transferred to the mind, that masculine piece of putting the structure. Okay, well, what do I need to do now? The mind creates the structure for us to do what naturally arises in our body if we're able to hear it.
Yeah, that's a massive shift from we're so used to functioning in our minds. And, I know the value of sitting in stillness and I know the value of tuning into my body, but how often do I do it?
Yeah.
Maybe once a day, but usually only if I'm maybe not feeling well. And I think, oh, well, it's in my calendar to go for a run or to go to kickboxing or whatever. Can I do it? Is that I don't have that regular practice of tuning in throughout the day. And so I think the more you make it a habit, obviously the more it becomes a habit.
Right. I mean, they say, as far as the mapping, right? The neurological mapping in our brains, that if we do an activity for 21 days straight, it becomes a habit, right? And so this is why I had mentioned that putting it in my phone to remind myself to do that has been really helpful. And for you, it's for someone else, it could be like stickies, or, all over the place or something, but something to remind us of what our intention is.
Yes.
And to come back to it.
So how does sleep play a role in our rest and recovery? And what's more important, quantity or quality?
Well, hands down, quality.
Yeah.
Quality is definitely the most important piece. But I think it's very hard to get 2 hours of quality sleep every day and expect to function, right? So there is this balance that gets to occur. So your question was, how does sleep play a role in our recovery, in our activity? And it kind of goes back to the rest, right? In sleep is where all our cells regenerate, right? Where the mitochondria, where the neutrons and protons, where all of these things that are going on in our body really get to regenerate. And if we're unable to give our bodies the time to regenerate, then, it's just not going to occur. And we're always going to be at a deficit. And when we're operating at a deficit, then it's only a matter of time when we hit rock bottom. And our body gives us enough clues if we're able to hear it, right? It gives us enough clues that we need to rest. We need more sleep. One of the great ways that, I was introduced to many years ago is we really get to go to sleep at a regular time, whatever regular time that is. And I think one of the difficult things is on the weekends or when your day offs are. We tend to want to stay up later or sleep in or things along those lines. And so to try to stick to a regular routine throughout the whole week is something really that's helpful. And then in addition to that, you get to see what I'd like to incorporate is to see, okay, can you take, let's say the weekend and see what time do you normally wake up without an alarm, right? So you can kind of gather how many hours of sleep you need. The old adage of you need 8 hours of sleep is not for everyone, right? Some people operate great on 5 to 6 hours of sleep. Some people need 10 hours of sleep. There have been periods in my life where my natural rhythm was 9 hours of sleep. Rarely got that, but I noticed that it was 9 hours that I needed in order to really rest and recover. So one of the great ways is to take a long weekend and go to bed at a regular time and see what time you get up naturally.
And I think the important thing to differentiate also, time in bed does not necessarily equal time asleep. Which I didn't really realize until I started wearing sleep tech, like a Fitbit or an Oura ring or one of those things. And that was when I realized, because I always used to think I needed 9 hours of sleep, but it wasn't. I needed to be in bed for 9 hours so I could get 8 hours of sleep because I wasn't sleeping efficiently.
Yes. Yeah. And that's a really good point as far as using the tools around us to actually track how much actual REM sleep we're getting, right? Because that's where we're recovering.
Yeah. And I think I have found it super useful to have that data because it's helped me to realize how important sleep is and how much I need.
Absolutely. And it can change, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
It really can change. So to not be so tied to the number, right? Because it's really not about the number. It's about, well, how is it that you're feeling?
Yeah.
How is it that you're experiencing life, right? We want to experience life full of vitality, full of energy. And that is really the most important marker versus sometimes what the Fitbit is saying.
Yeah, exactly. But I think also it's been useful to have that data and think, okay, does how I feel coincide with the data or does it not? Because, sometimes my Aura ring will say optimal sleep, readiness, optimal. And I'm like, but I'm not feeling that great this morning, so maybe I got a good night's sleep, but something else is happening that, so it's really helped me to kind of question that sometimes and actually tune into what my body's actually feeling.
Brilliant. Yeah. And that is just that. It is a tool, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But our biggest tool is our body.
Yeah, exactly. The tech is not gospel.
Yes.
So aside from sleep and aside from stillness, what are some other ways that we can recover from our adventures?
Well, nutrition is definitely an extremely important piece of recovery, right? I mean, what we put into our bodies really impacts how we feel, right? And I think there's really not a one style fits all because some people need more carbs. I'm necessarily not a macro micro counter at all. For myself, I watch my carbohydrates, but I'm not married to a keto diet or low carb diet or anything along those lines, right? And I have found that it just works better for me. And also with protein, right? Like what type of protein does your body assimilate better, right? Whether you choose to be a vegetarian or vegan or you're, carnivorous, it's really all trial and error. So it's really getting the right mix of foods for you. I think taking a good multivitamin is always essential because even if you're eating 100% organic, the soil is just not what it was, right? When our grandparents or great grandparents were around, right? So there's a deficiency within the soil. So I think that getting good multivitamins, there's certain things that I think are very helpful for stress, which is like the B12s and the Bs. I think that also antioxidants are extremely important because as the word explains, with antioxidants, it reduces the stress on the cellular level, right? So things along those lines are extremely, I think, important. And I also feel that another aspect of really aiding in our fitness and just in our recovery is really being out in nature, right? Like just going out for a walk or into the woods for the sake of just being out in nature, right?
Yeah.
Everything that is out there, oxygen, carbon dioxide, water, every element that is in nature is within our bodies, right? And so when we're sitting at the side of the ocean, when we're at the top of a mountain, the expansiveness that many of us experience when we're out there, it's not because of what's out there, but it's because of what's inside of us that's really connecting with the greater, whether you choose to call it universe, goddess, spirit, whatever it may be. That's the expansiveness that we're feeling. And when we're in tune with the world around us, it really helps us to center and ground and gives us a sense of like gratitude, which cannot really trump any medicine.
Yeah. I agree.
Nature is there.
Yeah. It's so helpful. So how else can we find a balance between being active and recovering from our adventures? I think finding that balance is so hard sometimes.
Yeah. I think that it's really about being mindful and being really present to what it is that's going on in that particular moment. So many times we get so distracted. We're distracted, right? I mean, we're distracted with our phones, with our smart tablets, the car, the radio. There's just so much distraction around us, right? And just life in general. And I think that finding the balance is really about being in the present moment as much as possible. And if we're able to do that, then that balance will be found. And I really do feel that putting in markers throughout our days to remind us to come back to present, is one of the more powerful things we can do to remind ourselves to be here in this moment.
Yeah, because we're so often like either worrying about the future or thinking about the past or thinking about all the stuff we have to do, it can be really, really challenging to focus on the present.
Absolutely. Something comes to mind when you were mentioning being in the past or in the future. That is really the premise of depression and anxiety, right? Where we're living in the past, so we're depressed, right?
Yep.
We're living in the future, so we're anxious of something that may or may not occur. So if we are able to stay here, just right here, and handle and be with what it is that's occurring for us at this present moment, then that feeling of gratitude, that knowingness of gratitude, it really just permeates all of our lives and hence helps to ground us and just have our better experience here on this earth. Because that's really, what we all want, right? Is to have a better experience, the best experience that we can have here in this body.
Absolutely. So you believe that hearing and listening and trusting your inner knowingness is the key to transformational health. So what does that actually look like on a day-to-day basis? Is this the being present, sitting in stillness, having those alarms to remind us to do these things? Is there something else that we need to do to kind of get in touch with that inner knowingness?
Yeah, well, what I do with my clients and with my patients is also we all have this ability to do this, and I think that it can take you whatever time it takes you in order to get through to this point. And if you have a team supporting you, right, supporting you in order to add more tools to create the more awareness, the different exercises, the different tapping into our energetic bodies. These are things that will support you in being more mindful, being able to take action in order to put and implement that knowingness of what is correct for your own body. So I think I answered your question, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, you totally did. Yes. So do you have any other tips? Is there anything that I haven't asked you that people need to know? Any last suggestions that you'd like to give?
Yeah. Well, thanks for that. But I think that really the piece here is to create a practice where one of the things that was most important, I will say that one of the most important things, impactful things in helping to create that connection with my body was being out in nature but for extended periods of time, right? Like I remember that I would try to just go out for a 15-minute walk, right? Or a 15 minutes out there. And what I had found is that when I took, and this may sound a little far off or difficult for some folks, but if you could really do this on a consistent basis, I think that it really shift how you see life, right? Is to spend a minimum of 3 hours outside. Bring your snacks, and bring, be safe, right? Bring your phone, whatever you feel you need to bring, right? Your water and all of that, and just be out there. Because the connection that you will have journeying into nature is unequivocal to anything that I have ever really experienced.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I would encourage large chunks of time. Maybe it's just once a quarter, that can happen. But when that has really been a game changer for me.
Yeah, me too. Late last year, just kind of the stress from all of the last 2 years got really difficult last year. And I started going on these monthly camping trips where I would kind of make a long weekend. So I'd take off Friday and Monday and I would just go camping. And so I was alone by myself. So I would just bring a stack of books and I would go for a run every day. But it was just being outdoors for 4 days. And I know not everyone can do that, but it was so helpful to me. I hadn't been able to go on vacation. I hadn't been able to kind of do the proper holiday thing, but just having those 4 days just completely changed my stress levels, my everything. It was just very restorative.
Yeah, I could imagine how powerful that must have been and continues to be.
Yeah.
Just balancing all those chemicals, all those endorphins. And we need that, right? Not just because of our current condition, but in everyday life, even when this thing is over, which I don't know if it'll ever be over, but when it becomes whatever it becomes, another challenge will arise and we'll need to deal with that. So this is a great time to use whatever time that you can afford. And this is the thing, we really can afford more time than we think.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, if we're able to really cultivate that now, it's really going to serve us as we move forward in life, in our years, as we move up in age. It's a real strong tool.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. You have fantastic tips, and I really look forward to implementing them in my life. So where can people find you online and learn more about what you do?
Yeah, sure. So I could be found at www.thespiritualphysician.com. That is the online platform that we utilize. I also am on Facebook at The Spiritual Physician. And well, Instagram, the social media stuff is not easy for me. So we're working on that, but that's coming. It's onboarding.
Right? Good. Thank you again. You have fantastic advice, and hopefully some of our listeners will take this on and start prioritizing rest.
I really do hope that they do, because it really is a game changer. And thank you for this opportunity.
Oh, thank you. Please drop me a line and let me know what you thought of this week's episode. You can email me at holly@hollywharton.com or find me online and get in touch there. If you enjoyed this episode, you might want to check out these related shows. 418, I talk about adventures in rest. 380, I talk with Sarah K. Brandis about what to do when our passions lead to burnout. 324, I talk about how to keep overwhelm from becoming burnout. 293, I talk about how to get back on track and get shit done after illness or burnout. And finally, episode 22, way back from years ago, I talk with Jane Morris about how to go from burnout to brilliance. So clearly this is a theme that I keep talking about over and over again. I think it's important. So as always, thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a quick review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. And remember to visit hollywharton.com/451 for the show notes on this episode. Thank you for listening, and happy trails to you. Thanks so much for listening to Into the Woods with Holly Wharton. You can find more information about today's episode, including links for topics that were discussed, at hollywharton.com. That's HOLLYWORTON.com. If you'd like to connect with other listeners and get support on your journey, I would love for you to join my private community on Patreon. That's patreon.com/Holly Wharton. That's patreon.com/Holly Wharton. Thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to seeing you next week.